And what about you, Helen? Have you been in a team that has had psychological safety?
Yes. Yeah. And it was a small growing business. And what was great was it, like you said, there was that psychological safety, there was accountability. You were given an output to deliver and effectively told to go and deliver it how you felt best, because you had been employed because of your skill set, because of your experience, because of your ability, and a belief in your ability to actually do and deliver. And for me, coming out of, God, how many years in different corporate environments, I really struggled because I was a bit like, well, where's my figures? What do you need? What do you want me to show you every week to prove that I'm doing what you want me to do? And it was, the response was like, well, we know you're doing what you're supposed to be doing because we can see the changes, and there might be small changes to begin with. But it was that sense of, I could ask, if something went wrong, because in recruitment things go wrong, I would always be in a place where I could put my hand up and say, I've cocked up, I've done this, I've made a mistake. But this is what, and so the first time I was like, I don't know what to do. And it's great because they were just like, right, okay, well, it happens. Let's do this, let's do that. Let's talk to this person, talk to that person. We'll sort this out. We'll apologise for that, and we'll just make sure we're doing this in future. And it was that kind of environment, And the flip side is I've been in an environment where, oh my God, you didn't admit you'd made a mistake. Because if you made a mistake, dear God, you knew about it, and you knew that you were kind of knocked down the pecking order and given all the crap jobs to do for a while. And I know where I'd rather.
So, I mean, we all make mistakes. So, what happened when you did make a mistake then? You covered it up? Blame someone else?
Not sure I want to put this on there. No, the thing is with me, I've always been the person who, even when I've known that how hideous the reaction is going to be, I might have avoided actually having the conversation for as long as I feasibly could. But I would always admit when I cocked up. I just don't. But
Yeah.
I would do it with nausea, feeling sick, palpitating heart, sweaty palms, stuttering, and wanting to quit there and then, rather than go through this whole conversation, but knowing I could, I had a mortgage to pay, so I couldn't. And there were a couple of conversations that I literally contemplated quitting rather than having to admit that I'd done something. And it wasn't even that big a mistake, it was just little things that sometimes you overlook something, or you miss somebody out of a list or something, or but even the littlest things were just absolutely ugh. Yeah. What about you?
Yeah, psychologically safe team, definitely. I've been part of that. Not an organization. I don't think I've ever been in an organization that has had psychological safety throughout, but certainly in a team where we were like quite a close knit team. There was five of us, I guess, and we could really say anything to one another. And I can even remember being in with my boss one day, who was fantastic, and I worked with him for years. I was really in a bad mood one day, and I took it out on him in the meeting. I was not helpful at all. But so much so that maybe an hour afterwards, when I'd calmed down, I went back in and I just said, look, I got out of the wrong side of the bed this morning. There is no kind of excuse for my bad behavior today. But what I liked was he didn't hold that against me, either in the meeting or afterwards. But I also felt comfortable kind of, approaching him saying, I was a bit miserable today. But you knew the brilliant thing about it was you knew he had your back always. And that gives you such an element of kind of freedom to get on and do things. And he was never going to throw you under the bus, and all of those things that just make life much easier. But he expected a lot in return as well. I mean, so I think he challenged, without a doubt, he challenged, but he also supported and consulted. And we did in the team as well, because we were all at different levels, but it was just that environment. And then, or psychologically unsafe, I've been in lots of workplaces that have just been miserable. And I guess I was kind of lucky because I stand up for myself, but I know there are times when I didn't speak up because, well, I would choose my battles as well, because it's like, oh God, here she goes again. Uh, but it's really frustrating when you can see that you're not making progress with something because people refuse to face the actual issue.
Yes.
And I mean, there's one incident that just comes to mind where we were really trying to control costs better, and I used to go around the houses in how to get rid of some people, basically, which people could we afford to lose. And it always ended up talking about the receptionist who got paid nothing, and that wasn't going to make any difference. Like the directors were paid about 8 times, probably more like 25 times more than this person. And one of them would keep like, yeah. Well, anyway, but a decision was made that 3 people were going to get made redundant before Christmas. Now, I don't think they were the 3 right people, but a few of us were like, we don't kind of agree with this, but we just couldn't say it to the MD. So we went to this person, these people's boss, and that person kicked up and said, no way, and kind of threw it back at us to sort out. And we were in an office. I was there with the director of HR and some other director, and we were talking about it. And the MD came into the room. And all 3 of us like stopped talking, and no one really knew what to do. And he was like, I mean, this person, you just ended up in a different country if you said anything, kind of. So this guy says, what's happening? So I just went for it and I said, we cannot make these 3 people redundant for these reasons. Yes, we have an issue. And I explained the whole thing, kind of whatever. And he said, okay. And as he was doing that, I could see the director of HR going, thank you, like this to me, across the room. But I went back to my desk, and I have never in my life felt so much stress and tension in my shoulders. Like they were like iron bars. So the amount of, lactic acid that built up in there in that stressful environment. Now, I didn't really care if I got fired, but it was more than that. He was just not the type of person that you raised an issue with.
And that has so many implications, doesn't it? Because that drips down, that becomes acceptable behaviour, and nobody ever does anything outside of the job description. Nobody ever does anything for the right reasons. People do things because to keep themselves safe, not necessarily whether they're right or wrong, as in, doing the wrong thing, but they will sometimes do things that they don't sit with their values and their own personal ethics. And again, that's where people then leave,